Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today for this session on film education in Europe during COVID-19. My name is Robert Monroe, I'm an assistant editor on the Film Education Journal, and I'm joined by my colleague Flip, who is also going to be with us moderating the chat today. You might see the symbol in the top left of your screen. We are recording this chat and we will upload it to YouTube later on, and we'll send you the link via Eventbrite for that as well. When you come in, your mics are muted. If you could please keep them muted while the discussion is ongoing so we don't get any weird feedback loops. We welcome questions after the presentations today, so please do put your questions in the chat as the talks progress, and Mark will read them out later on. Before I introduce Mark and our session today, we have another session tomorrow at the same time, 4:30. A discussion between English and media teachers in Scotland. And if you've signed up for this session today, you'll have that link via Eventbrite as well. Lastly, we're in the process of designing our annual conference, the Scottish International Film Education Conference. This takes place on the 17th and 18th of June. Like this, it will be online for obvious reasons at this point. And again, Flip will share the link to the Eventbrite page to sign up for that in the chat in just a moment. So without any further ado, I'll pass over to Mark Reid, Head of Education at the British Film Institute, who is chairing today's panel and will introduce our speakers.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you, Flip. Hello, everybody. Welcome to wherever you are, but also welcome to Film Education Journal Evening Symposium on working with schools, working with film education online in pandemic times. I think every cliche about changed, new normal, changed environment has been exhausted. So we are now living in this different environment, this different world, this different mode of engagement. And it's had an impact on the way that we as film educators work with children, young people, teachers, learners. We all know that. But we're taking the opportunity just to compare some different approaches, some possibly similar approaches from across European settings. We're really pleased that we've got, well, I'm very pleased anyway, that we've got two colleagues from the BFI who will kick off. They'll do the first presentation. It's Corinna and Nikki, Corinna Downing and Nikki Parchment, who've transformed the schools program with a couple of other colleagues from being in venue to being online. We also, and then after that, we have Ivana Alpeza from Seventh Continent organization in Croatia, and Ivana is going to talk to us about the changes that they've made, going from face-to-face, real life, into online digital work. We were thinking particularly about kindergarten, work with kindergarten, but I think you're going to talk a bit more broadly about that than that, Ivana. But just about what different ways of working with children and their teachers. And then Barbara Kelbl from Kinodvor in Ljubljana in Slovenia. Kinodvor is a fantastic art cinema and is part of a network of art cinema, and they do lots and lots of great film education work, which again, like everybody else, has moved online to a greater or lesser extent. So we're going to have three presentations, one after the other. They'll take about between 10 to 15 minutes each. They will have about 15 or 20 minutes at the end for questions. The most efficient way, if you've got questions, is to put them in the chat. And then we'll when we finish the presentations, then we can go through the chat and put the questions. And it's possible that if you put a question in the chat and you want to speak it, it's always nice to see people's faces and people's rooms and environments. We're happy for you to do that, but put the question in the chat first so that we get a sense of what range of questions there are. And there might be some factual stuff which is easily answered in the chat, but maybe more discursive can be spoken. Okay, so nothing ever goes wrong on these occasions, does it? The technology always works perfectly. We're going to hand over to Nikki and Corinna, who are going to share some slides and a bit of film and tell us about work with schools that BFI Education is doing. So over to you, Nikki and Corinna first.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And hello, everyone. Lovely to see you today. So I'm Corinna, and I work with Nikki looking after the schools programme. I also work more broadly thinking about resources and about teacher training, but most of my job is slightly different than it was a year ago, as we will discuss in terms of the work we do, but that's loosely what I do. And Nikki.
And as Corinna said, I work on the schools programme. I programme events primarily for film and media studies teachers and their students. But yes, very much like Corinna, what I was doing a year ago has somewhat changed, and that's due to, as we know, the pandemic.
So we're going to just give a kind of a skip through kind of the last year of our lives in examples from our work. But before we do that, just so that everyone listening has a sense of the context for our work, just to say that something about BFI education and about where film and media fit in young people's lives in school in England. So BFI education usually in the past used to offer events with resources for teachers and students at BFI South Bank, our building in London. And this was where most of our events took place. And they were mainly connected to the English national curriculum, but also to some of the British Film Institute's cultural programme. The BFI itself also is a large part of the funding for another organisation, Interfilm, which also works all around the UK year round as well. So we work sort of separately to Interfilm, which are a different sort of bigger organisation working around the UK. So film and media are not standalone subjects in the English curriculum until you are 14, when you can choose to take it as an exam subject. And cinema is not built in as an art form to the English curriculum under the age of 14 in the way that it is in other countries. So we kind of find ways to bring it in where it can fit and support learning. A few other English towns and cities have larger independent cinemas, which also provide ongoing education work connected to the curriculum year round, but not many, honestly. And most cinemas may introduce screenings to schools, but not many of them will actually have an actual programme year round. So that's kind of a bit of context. And now over to Nikki to give a sense of what we used to do in that context.
Okay, so to help me explain this, I'm just going to share a slide with you. Okay, so pre-2020, this is what our schools programme would look like. We would have lots of students and teachers in our cinema spaces, all coming together to enjoy our events that were presented by academic leads and had industry speakers, screenings, all sorts of things to sort of enrich the experience for them. On average, we had sort of 70 or more in-venue schools events happening at BFI South Bank in London. And we would welcome between 13 and 14,000 pupils and teachers, and they were all from schools. But mostly they were from Greater London, sometimes from South East England, and then a very few from further afield, say 100 or more miles away. We were trying to address this London-centric problem by taking our events to partner venues around England. And these included partners in Bradford and Bristol, Nottingham and Yorkshire. So we were trying to extend our reach that way, but still keeping our programme in venue. As well as having our programme of events, which as I said, were sort of aimed directly at schools, were curriculum linked where possible, and were also with a range of ages from Key Stage 1, which is very young students in primary school, all the way through to Key Stage 5, which is just before going out to university. These events would be fairly long. They would sort of be a school days in length, and they would involve lots of interactivity with the students. As well as these events, we would try to tie our cultural programme at the BFI into our offer for schools, trying to encourage school groups to come in and see films that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. And we used to have a Mediatek programme as well. So Mediatek is the BFI's archive, a digital version of it, and we would bring school groups into BFI South Bank and share with them some of the sort of online resources we had linked to that. So, you know, that's what we were doing, but of course things changed. I'm going to let Corinna talk about the starting points of our changes to the programme.
Yeah, so it wasn't, obviously for the same as everyone, it happened suddenly. And as with other organisations, we didn't all go on furlough necessarily right away, but there was a sense of what exactly to do with what we had, in as much as everything live, all the live events were cancelled. So we couldn't, in effect, kind of, you know, like everyone else, rabbits in headlights, we couldn't work out exactly what to do right away. So we didn't actually start converting our existing programme into an online version until later in the year. And what we did, but there are a couple of things which happened early on, which in a way, which kind of gave us ideas for how we could operate. It wasn't that we had never tried Zoom before. It wasn't that we'd never seen anything online before. We just couldn't work out initially how to convert what we had into something else. And we didn't know whether schools would want it. We just didn't know, as nobody did. So could I get the next slide, Nikki? So we had two things which gave us some ideas about how it might work. The first of these is probably very familiar to lots of people watching today, is the lovely European Film Academy's Young Audience Award. So we've worked on this since the beginning, and as anyone involved in this will know, they converted to online last year. And the way this worked for us was basically all good, all good, that we had struggled to find a UK jury that we could bring into BFI South Bank very early on a Sunday morning. And we had not always had large numbers, normally about 15. Last year, all the screenings went online and the recruitment for jurors therefore went UK-wide. And we did that via regional partners. We did it with help from Interfilm, and we brought in 60 jurors from around the country, and especially loved that we had jurors who came from small remote places with Wi-Fi, basically. And so we'd had people in from who would never normally have been involved with this. And so they watched the films, but we also had some Zoom meetings as well, which were, for me, a big trial on how does this work? How do you engage 15, 13-year-olds on screen simultaneously? How do you make that work? And so the key learning we got from it really was, first of all, that we lost that local venue and the face-to-face, which we kind of before had kind of felt it was what it was all about. But what we gained was that amazing geographical access and also just a trial for us on Zoom. And then the BFI London Film Festival in October, months later, for that one, again, the entire festival, which had been a massive physical event, became much smaller and became a hybrid event. We had a window there where cinemas were open with restrictions in October. So some of the events were at the cinema. And but we did it, we were all online. We only did 3 events, but with 3 events, we managed to get the audience that we would normally get with 15 events, basically, because we got that massive geographical reach. And also at that point, children were mainly, not all, but children and students were mainly still in schools. So that was very manageable, because literally our points of contact were the teacher. We only had that one teacher logging in. And a couple of the events for older students would be joining the events independently from home, but at that point it was quite rare. That was something else we've had to handle at the beginning of this year, which Nikki will talk about. So with the London Film Festival, what came out of the big learning from that was literally using the Zoom tools in themselves. How useful is Zoom in terms of webinars and meetings, and just like using those like you would a venue, just using that. And using other apps as well, even though we have stayed with Zoom, and we know that teachers, at least in the UK, are much on Google Classrooms and Microsoft Teams, but we have stayed on Zoom. And so that was the big learning on that. Anyway, over to Nikki.
Okay, so this slide kind of represents what our events look like now. You can see the image there. I'm sure it's very familiar to all of you. That's sort of what a Zoom webinar meeting looks like, and that's what our events now look like. Before I go through talking about some of the numbers and some more details on that, I can also share a short clip which illustrates what our events now look like. And what you're about to see is just a minute long from an event that we did actually, after we'd done a few, so so we had honed some skills by this stage. It's a Key Stage 5 Spanish event, and you'll see the end part of a clip that's been played for analysis, and then the presenters engaging with the students and teachers who are in the audience to ask for comments regarding this clip that they've seen. So I will play that for you now. Oh, sorry, Corinna will play that for you now.
Yeah, if you stop screen sharing, I'll do that. Thanks.
Muy bien, veo por ahí eso de los besos manchegos, me ha gustado mucho, los besos manchegos. Efectivamente, una de las demostraciones de afecto es justamente eso, esa necesidad física, ¿no? de abrazar, de besar, ¿no? a la persona que está pasando por ese mal trago. Muy bien, y en cuanto al uso de los espacios, he leído no se muestran, o sea, no, perdón, no se juntan los hombres y las mujeres. A ver, ¿qué más? Los hombres están en la calle socializando, mientras que las mujeres están dentro rezando, muy bien. Los hombres y las mujeres no se mezclan, están separados, muy bien. El plano picado nos muestra las mujeres se besan y se abrazan muy bien por ese detalle de utilizar los planos para explicar la escena. Fenomenal.
Okay, so I will share the screen again for this clip. So, so as you can see, it's much different from being at a live event, and yet in some ways not different at all. There were still students turning up. There were still students and teachers engaging with clips, and it started to feel as though these events were offering something very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar to what we had offered in venue. Since we've started this programme, we have scheduled over 30 events, and much like the programme before, they're aimed from Key Stage 1, so from primary school children, all the way through to Key Stage 5. The first events were not linked to a festival, were two events that we did featuring the film La Haine. And we had over 1,000 pupils and teachers turn up for those events, which was far more than we would have had in venue had we run those same events. And that's, as Corinna has said, that's due to the fact that we were just able to geographically reach so many more people. Also, as well, we've been able to be a lot braver with our programming. So one example of this is our response to the Black Lives Matter campaign. And we programmed some events which we called Black Lives on Screen. The first of those was a teacher training event for history teachers. And this is an audience of teachers who we haven't really been able to crack before now. We haven't been able to reach them in the way that we would like to. But to that first event, we had 160 teachers turn up and engage with it, which represents something like 100,000 school pupils, which just blew us away. And we were able to use clips from the archive, and it really felt like an important thing to be doing, which, you know, which is great for the programme. We've definitely, I feel, or we feel, sort of developed our programme in quite a progressive way, and a lot of that is due to us being able to utilise Zoom, turn our offer into a digital offer, and access people that audiences that we wouldn't ordinarily. What another sort of positive thing that's come from doing things digitally is pupil interaction. At the beginning, as Corinna said, lots of students were still in school, so we were doing it through teachers, and then when schools closed, we still had events that were programmed, so we decided that we would run them anyway and have students logging on from home, and we were quite nervous about it. We didn't know how it was going to go, we didn't know what students would be like at home without having sort of the teacher there to shepherd them through the experience. But their interaction from home was quite phenomenal, really. The chat box was full of comments, and as presenters were presenting, there was like a stream of consciousness coming from students that you wouldn't get in a live event, because you can't interrupt what the presenter's saying. But in the chat box, you can discreetly share your ideas without interrupting the presentation, and that was just great to witness, really. So sort of having sort of learned all of these things and having had these successes, the stage we're all at now, we guess, is sort of how to marry together the in-venue experience, that experience of coming to a cultural space and all the value that that has, while still retaining some of the positives of digital work, being able to reach people that we wouldn't ordinarily, and allowing for pupil interaction with our events that wouldn't be possible were it not online, and then being able to engage with it in that way. So I think that's probably it from me. So thank you for that. But Corinna, did you have a few things to add just at the end in terms of sort of future opportunities?
I think you've kind of covered it, actually. It was just just to say at the end of it, you know, that it feels like we have just massively explored Zoom, and we think that we should be probably exploring other things. So that's one of the things we were sort of looking forward to hearing from others from today, that we feel we've just got our heads around being the projectionists as well as the presenters, and we just know we can do more now. That's it, really. Thank you.
Speaking of which, I shall stop sharing.
That's great. Thank you both very, very much. That's a great start. And I think you set it up really nicely, this notion of how we're recreating the cinema, and to some extent recreating a cinema experience behind the scenes and on screen, and with interaction, and what the affordances are of online. You know, are we losing anything? And you know, how we're picking up on engagement. That's a lovely start. And Richard had a question about IP, which Corinna's answered, and maybe that's something else that Ivana and Barbara might also pick up when you'll talk, or maybe in the discussion afterwards, because there is going to be an anxiety over copyright if we're sharing material online, that is maybe less of an issue when we're in the cinema. Anyway, we're going to move on to Ivana Alpeza from Seventh Continent. Over to you, Ivana. You've got your screen to share, haven't you?
Okay, hello to all the organizers and to all the participants, and thank you for the opportunity to share our experience, how was to conduct a kindergarten project during the pandemic. As Mark introduced me, I'm Ivana, I'm coming from Croatia. I graduated in Croatian language and literature, and at the moment, I work as a program director and film educational developer in Seventh Continent, which is a leading film program for schools and kindergartens in Croatia, dedicating to promote film literacy. I think I still, although I'm 40 and something, still believe that art, education and film can change the world. So everything I do is actually dedicating in combining these three. Today, oops, why I can, okay. Today, I will present you a project and program in the same time, kindergartens in community cinemas, which we have been developing, which has been developing since 2016. It is dedicated to, it is entitled in Croatia to preschoolers. That means it's for 6 and 7 years old kids. It is for the same group of children. And we offer them multiple film screenings throughout the pedagogical year. In total, four screenings, with, of course, diverse selection of film. I believe that all the participants and all the panelists agree with me that today to be literate is to participate fully in culture, and that film and media are part of the literacy. And as we are dealing with digital natives who are, in our case, 6 and 7, for them to participate fully in 21st century culture is to be literate in the moving image. So we decided that through exploration of film, we focus on developing of creativity, critical thinking, and cultural appreciation in kindergartens. Here is our famous circle of trust. We term adopted from, of course, thanks to watching film Meet the Fockers too many times, but it actually shows us all the stakeholders, which are quite important when you are dealing with the children in such an important or delicate or vulnerable age. And it shows how all of us are connected in our cosmos. Let's put it in that way. Thanks to municipality, which is in this case city of Zagreb, we as a program developer and film educational provider bring or deliver a program to community centers which are owned by the governmental institution. I mean, owned by the municipality. We collaborate with kindergartens very closely, sending them resources for kindergarten nursery teachers to prepare children before and after the screenings, which they are coming to the cinemas in the community centers. That's the way how we are connected with municipality. We are closely collaborate with the Faculty of Teachers Education, who help us to improve our program from edition to edition, and to conduct and develop continuing professional trainings for our nursery teachers. And at the end, in our circle of trust are parents. They are last but not the least, and we try to have at least once a year motivation seminars or panels similar like this, but in live till pandemic, dedicated to film literacy. Our preschool methodology is based on three basic principles. I'm telling you now everything what concerns our program before pandemic and during the pandemic, but we will come to that at the end. So for us, very much is important conscious watching, guided viewing, and we ensure nursery teachers with handbooks, which are full of details, hands-on literacy activities, prepared in details with all the audio and video and colorful materials. and they are based on structural correlation approach, which thinks of film as a different film as a different synthesis of different art forms. You will see how we try with children to develop their active or conscious watching. They are choosing with their preschool teachers or nursery teachers from the film menu which film they will watch. They have cinema tickets before coming to the cinema venue. They know what to expect because they come 4 times a year, and as soon as they come to cinemas, they're ritually coming actually to the cinemas and having feeling that that is something special and different than they used to do other days in the kindergarten. We always start film screenings with exercises, which helps them to concentrate and to relax with very charming exercises of consciousing their ability to watch and to see and to hear. You can see on this photo that they are checking their ears. Before that, they check their eyes, and they do similar things. And at the end, they relax and they are prepared for immersion in the dark for a reception of the film on the screen. Before and after the screening, we always conduct introduction. We always force them, not force them, but some nicer word, I mean, to entitle them to share their experience between themselves or with the host or conductor of the cinema event. And you can see it's very well participated. As soon as they come to kindergarten back, they dive into the hands-on literacy activities, which are already prepared by their nursery teachers. And they go, sorry, sometimes my slides are going and sometimes they stop. And they explore optical toys and all sorts of different workshops which are connected to the theme of the movie or with the film as a synthesis of other art forms. You can see them in groups, individually, exploring the moving image. It was perfect little program that we were developing from year to year. But then it came lockdown in 2020. We were quite stunned with the situation like everybody else. We were observing a month or two. And although Zagreb was hit with a quite strong earthquake, very soon we were approached by the teachers, nursery teachers, who asked us whether we are continuing with our program in which mode. So we were quite encouraged to think and to work with the kindergarten because we had funds. We had film selection for year 2020. We have our strong preschool teaching methodology, which is part of our circle of trust. We have experienced project team, nursery teachers very well being in and for our program, and the only one and not unsolvable was part of our circle of trust, and that is a cinema venue. And we were thinking how to to help to each other. And at that time, everybody starts to Zoom, and we say, why don't we start to Zoom in kindergarten? So everything what was happening in the cinema, we can go through online. And anyhow, everything else, what we are doing with teachers and what we are doing with parents and what we are doing with kids is happening with their teachers, with the help of our material that we are preparing for them. So here you can see a few photos how it looked. You can post it now, our small video, 1.5 minutes in a chat, in which you can shortly see how actually it looked in kindergarten and how kids participated. From technical side of view, we chose Zoom. We helped to some kindergartens with the technical equipment and with preparations and with Zoom, of course. And the transition from live to online environment went very smoothly and very naturally. Much more natural to children than to us, of course, because they are digital natives. We ensure them continuity of the program with the and feeling of trust, because the same host that is hosting them in a cinema and conduct the pre and post cinema screening is the same person. Structure is very well known, so everything went smoothly and very naturally for kids. For us, it was very nice to establish even stronger relationship with the nursery teachers, because we answered in this moment with adequate material. And we had to communicate with them very closely these days. So in that sense, we get even closer in that period. So you can see some of the reactions. Much nicer is film, little film, but you can see here acting, you can see dancing, you can see sound exploring after the screening. You can see the stop animation going on. So it's just a 2D, but in a movie you can see the whole stop animation, and it's very nice. They stop animated themselves going to the cinema in these pandemic times. So when we come to pros and cons, who gained and what we gained and what we lost in this situation of having kindergartens project online, I would say that in terms of pros, we maintained the continuity of the program. We established this trust relationship through familiar face of the host and well-known structure between teachers and kids. We achieved even higher level of quality of our program, because we worked with smaller groups, not with the whole cinema, and we could have a personal approach to each child in this group. In this relationship, we could nicely proceed with developing human-to-human relationship with nursery teacher in process of preparing our Zoom events and encouraging them that they can do it and then that they have to do it. But on the other side, on cons side, of course, we lost the magic of cinema and experience of watching a film on a big screen. we couldn't proceed with cinema going habit, which we are developing with preschoolers 6 and 7, which is our main goal in our program. This kind of project, this version of project, is lacking of excitement, is in lack of excitement. There is no going to the cinema as a social event. And there is some complexity in process of educating and nurturing nursery teachers into film ambassadors and film lovers if you are on Zoom. But we have a future of this project, as Corinna and Nikki said. Somehow we became aware, like we didn't know that Zoom exists and then we can go online, but for the first time we became aware that we can cover whole Croatia. We can have really bigger reach than we have now. And we are now in the second phase of researching sustainability of the project on the national, at the national level. This online environment in technology plus helped us to build up a kindergarten network, because lots of kindergartners approached us because we have very strong campaign through the social media, and they wanted to become a part of our project, although there are no in Zagreb, and although municipality of Zagreb didn't fund participation of their program, we of course allowed them to jump in our project, but they are actually willing to pay for this participation in future editions. So in this way, we will be able to approach to audience development in culturally and socially underprivileged place, which is also our main goal. And I don't know, in the new normal, we will have probably to balance in combining these these two channels, old and new activity, and we will see how it will develop when it comes a day when we are coming back to cinema. As Mark said to me that he would like to hear from us about our other projects. I didn't prepare slides, but our school program, I don't have to proceed. Okay. So this is our story about the kindergartens. We did, of course, something with the primary school as well, but that will be a part of some other panel. Thank you for your attention.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Ivana. There's so much in there just about working with younger children that we can learn from. And it's always something, it's nice to foreground working with kindergarten age or preschool or nursery school children, because the approach has to be different. But at the same time, there are things that we can learn about play, for example, that really should be translated into work with learners of any age. And also just note that when you talk about on the continent, in continental Europe, you talk about preschool 6 and 7 years old. In the UK, 7-year-olds have already been in school for 2 years. You know,
yeah, I know.
That's because of the way we abuse children in the UK and put them through formal schooling. But you know, it's really great to see that kind of much more playful and imaginative approach there with younger children. Thank you. We're going to move on to Barbara. I'm looking through there you are, Barbara. So you can now share the slide and share your work with us from Ljubljana.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Technical problems. Did you see the slides?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you see the first slide. Of course, I can't see you. Okay. Hi. I can't see myself, but you can see the slides. You do?
Yeah, we can see the slides. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
And we can see you as well, or I can see you.
Okay. My name is Barbara. I come from Slovenia, and I work in Kinodvor. I take care of schools, of school program, and Kinodvor is an old cinema with a lot of charm in the center of Ljubljana, and we are the cinema for different generations. I take care of a school program which stretches from 3 to 4 years old to students and all the ages in between. And we make very small experimental projects like this one. And we also try to build on large national or local projects. And we take care of school program on 6 festivals. So we are quite a vast program and very diverse. In 2019, we had approximately 24,000 visitors from all ages. And we were filled. We have only one screen, so it was very alive every day. But in 2020, you know the pictures, you know the drill. The cinema was closed and teachers and schoolers were sent home. And we had very long distance learning. And when they returned to schools, they couldn't come to the cinema. So we had to develop a new model of thinking. Our first problem was that we had no films. We don't have a film institution like you have. We don't have any online platforms with film dedicated for schools, suitable for film education. So we had to start from the scratch. And we knew that it's not only films. We base our programs on close cooperation between schools and cultural institutions. And we built on that for many years. And now the schools were not allowed to visit us. But this brings special adventure to go out of class, to come to the cinema, and to see something different, and this was cut. So we started from the very beginning with the simple questions: what is that children need and what is that teachers need? And we started with, we were closed, but we had many calls from teachers. So they were asking us for advice or support. So we started very simple. We offered our materials and connected them to the films that were screened on television or that were available online. And we served as a center for advice and support. But we had to move on. So we dug into putting films online. We had to, we didn't have any working model that we could rely on. So we had to negotiate terms with distributors, and we were unsure will the schools be able or willing to pay for online films and online program. Because suddenly in spring, everybody was posting everything online, and there were thousands of recommendations and online films. And in Slovenia, it's illegal. There are very transferable boundaries between legal and illegal. So everybody is using everything also in schools. So we had to see what will happen. Together with films, we developed also online materials and activities. We had online PDFs with all the teachers' resources and all the teachers' advice, and we had beautiful printed booklets for kids that were available also online. But this was, PDF. It was not moving. It was just staying there on the web page. So we knew we needed something a bit more fun and appealing. So we developed Cinema Playground, and I will try to show you a short excerpts, 1 minute, so that you can see how we try to connect film with activities.
Berti! Oh, Berti živijo. Tu je naš kinobalon.
Okay, so I share my presentation again. Okay, now.
Oh, now is good. Yeah.
Okay, so Cinema Playground has a lot of layers. Some of them are visible to the public, and some of them connect the film only to the teachers. And first, we recorded introductions. We wanted to add a personal touch to the films that children see in their school. We wanted this screening, even though it's online, it's a special event, that it has an atmosphere, that it's something different from math before or biology after. So it's not just watching a film. And then we made many activities. From those who are connected to the cinema, building a cinema projector, playing with lights, making your cinema tickets, to the board games, to cutting to synchronizing the film excerpts. And in all that we did, we tried to build on connecting children that were a lot online to the real world. We didn't want to make online games or online online quizzes or PDFs, presentations. We want the children to use their scissors, to jump, to build. So that was our main concern in developing those activities. We were encouraged with a strong example of our Croatian friends. So we moved also to online talks with pedagogues, with film authors, and we developed some workshops. And here also we try to be as physical as possible. So for the 8th graders, for example, we did hand-drawn animation because not all the schools and not all the teachers are equipped technically, and we work on so many schools that you cannot predict what will happen if you do something that is too technologically advanced. And it's good. Every school has a paper and every school has a pen. So you have an online mentor, but you do a hand-drawn animation, or you take yourself few tomatoes and a pot, and you can make an animation in your kitchen or in your class. And we included, of course, detailed webinars and supporting materials for the teachers. Right now, we are finishing our cinema suitcase. It will travel to kindergartens, and it involves the booklets that are printed and dimensioned, and of course, optical toys, film strip. So it's in April, it will start to follow around. So in this year, we managed to keep the variety of our programs and all the audiences, all the ages, all the different approaches. The schools responded favorably. We were quite happy. But where to go now? At the end of this year, in December, we asked our teachers, where would you prefer to come in next year? Would you come to cinema, or would you prefer to have an online program? And half of them still choose cinema, and half of them both options. The online sector is still very small, but if I compare this to the results of our inquiry in June, when or in August, when they booked our shows for the autumn, all the teachers, 90% of the teachers choose cinema. So the new reality is, we are getting adjusted to the new reality that combines cinema and online, and there is no going back. And we asked them also, I want to share this with you because I found it very interesting. What are the pros and minuses, and what are the pluses and minuses of online and cinema? So there is quite a lot of text. I'm sure you can see the recording afterwards, but what surprised me was that in cinema, it was not the better sound and bigger picture argument that we always state that it's a cinema's specialty, but there were softer qualities that were mentioned, like special event and buildings on social connections and atmosphere, even the funny ones. No need for teachers to discipline children. This was the funny one. And on online, they see, of course, the obvious advantages, the commodity of it, but it was interesting to me that they saw quite a lot of cons also. And these were teachers, these were not cinephiles, but they felt like when you are online, there is difficult to less variety. You don't confront yourself with other viewers, and some no interesting arguments that they stated. So where next? I'm sure that we'll stay in cinema, but I'm sure also that we'll have a good company of online friends. Thank you. So I'll stop sharing.
That's wonderful. Thank you as well, Barbara. That's great. And some very specific responses of the advantages, the pros and cons around cinema versus online, and particularly because you asked teachers, and parents, and you know, they're the people who'll tell us in some detail that red velvet seats really matter. To watch a film, we can't watch a film otherwise. We'll have a bit of time just for an open discussion, but Catherine asked a very specific question, Catherine from Interfilm, about the cinema suitcase, which I think lots of us were intrigued by, and whether there's anything else you can say. Was there a specific question, Catherine, or did you just want to know more?
Just keen to know more about kind of what is packaged inside that Is it one per class? What is the role? Yeah, just looked really nice.
Yeah, if we won't be able to have a workshop in a kindergarten, because we usually go there with our mentors, we will connect. We did connect and will connect online. But I thought it's beautiful if we could, at least for Ljubljana's kindergartens, for our city, send. So I have to. It will be, you know, it has to be red. So it's here. I will. It will be red suitcase, and we have a booklets that are, you know, for every film. So every child can have a booklet, and he can draw. And it's different if he watches it online or if he can cut and draw on the booklet. And then we have the packages are coming of the. Does BFI have a nice flip books? You know, I need a lot of nice flip books. And we are building a praxinoscope because it's very simple. And of course, we'll put some thaumatrops and some film strips. So when you talk to them, that they have something to touch, to feel.
Lovely, thank you very much.
It's a lovely idea. It's very tactile. It's very concrete.
Yes.
It's very specific, and it's very sponsorable. If you wanted to get commercial backing for it, or trust backing for it, we don't want to go there. We've got about just under 15 minutes, I think, for questions, and then I think people probably have to slope off. I've got one question just to start with for each of you, and it's, if this happened all over again, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently?
Literally something that springs to mind, because me and Nikki were just saying how tiring it is. Literally, it is kind of, you think, well, I'm not physically, we are not physically going, we're not traveling, we're not handling large numbers of people, but we don't have all that kind of, small or large support network of other people who all have their own roles. And so it's that, having to learn it all is one thing, but it just is very physically tiring being in your own house, doing all of that for month after month. So I think I would have paced myself better, and I would have, set aside time to, in effect, train myself a bit more before I started doing it. I think just that, but I think it just is, it is because you're so isolated, it's draining. And so kind of the highs and lows, it's almost harder to measure, when you're saying about actually getting physical feedback and surveys from people who've been involved, children or parents or teachers, that feels real, but there's a lot of the whole experience which actually hasn't felt totally real. So that really, it's a bit vague, but I would say.
No, that's absolutely right. I think people are finding that with online engagement per se, you think it's just sitting in front of a computer, but that is cognitively and emotionally and, psychically very, very, very draining. Anybody else got a response to that? Is there something that you do differently, or something you've learned that you wish you'd known before? Ivana?
We would send much before all the equipment for the animation lab to travel around kindergartens, but we are planning it for autumn, because we couldn't prepare ourselves before, but we were thinking in that way, to really physically send all the things which are possible to send, and then to give them Zoom lectures to nursery teachers, and partially to be part of their sessions and to help them, but to force them really to do something bigger than just hands-on literacy, although they are wonderful. But we would force them more to work, to help. We would like to help them to work more in moving image direction.
Barbara, Nikki, anything that okay if not?
Yeah, we worked a lot with younger children from 4 to 12, but we were not very good. We didn't make many steps to approach to youngsters yet, because I think they are a little bit, we did have some talks and some screenings, but they are different in this way, and they are even more online. So we have to figure out what to do with them still.
And maybe even in a bigger need for such programs.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe Nikki, that's something you could add, because quite a lot of our events have been for teenagers and for older teenagers. So, I mean, there are things that happen in the chat box, for example, with older teenagers that, go on, mute.
Sorry, rookie error. Yeah, so it was really interesting. We had some anxieties over sort of what would appear in the chat, because there would be sort of no management of what students were saying. But by and large, it was all really positive and fascinating to see their thoughts just being shared as literally as they had them. And of course, this is, you know, this might not be how sort of I'm sort of, you know, assuming that everyone's of a certain age here. It's not probably how we would interact with media, but definitely younger people are used to sort of interacting with media this way. They'll quite often have multiple screens and be watching something while they're looking at their phone, commenting on something else. And and the sort of the fan culture that you get around different media texts, you know, they're very, very used to sort of analysing things on the hoof and sharing those analyses. And that was just a revelation, really. You kind of knew that it happened, but to see it in action was really interesting, and to see how, you know, how might we exploit this, because it's enriching in its own way. And I was also going to say as well, just thinking about things that we might like to do differently. Just the last two presentations from Barbara and Ivana were really inspiring, and it would be really nice to think that we could do something more practical with our digital outreach as well, to get sort of students making and sort of immersing themselves in film and filmmaking in a different way. So that was really inspiring and something to think about, I think.
Are there wider questions that people want to raise? Richard, you raised something. Hi, Richard. You raised something. I don't know whether it's just a UK question, but maybe it's a wider question. Whether online is making the notion of a film club redundant, or whether a film club is going to would be reinvented through a digital experience. I mean, that's something for the panelists, but Catherine, you're from Interfilm. You take the opportunity to, if you've got something to say about Interfilm and how Interfilm have responded to the pandemic.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like all other organisations, we've had to adapt our approaches. Our CPD and teacher training moved online in 2020 and is still running that way. We've had to adapt or develop some of our existing resources for a home learning or a blended learning approach, and providing some kind of things that are a bit more family friendly as well as just educator focused. And then the film clubs are all still running, and we've had some great feedback from people who run the film clubs and how they've been able to adapt that in these kind of in the new normal. Yeah, there's some resources on our website about adapting your film club for a remote learning approach. So yeah, new challenges, but finding new creative ways of working as well. So.
Thank you. And you, Richard, you'd also picked up this notion, I think, with Ivana, the parent motivators, which again is something that I kind of made a note on about. Does online give us an opportunity to engage in a more rounded kind of family sense, rather than just seeing students as being these people who are abstracted from home environments and put into school and turned into a different kind of person? How has the engagement with families been?
We didn't still try to make a Zoom with parents, but that's our plan for this spring. We are just in the process of organizing that. We did only in live. there is a lot of room for growth, because it's really not easy to reach parents, but those who come are really interested. And we try to make a little event of that, I mean, encounter that that is happening in the cinema. They always like to hear about the resources where they can find the quality films, where they can go with their children. They like if we teach them how to read secret message of the media, and why it's important to raise kids in film literacy, because it's a wider topic, not only focused on film. So these things that all are familiar to us. Parents which are now in kindergarten already digital natives, because they are probably raised with the screens. They need, I think they need this kind of introduction, and it helps them.
Michelle Cannon had just picked up, I think Michelle's had to go, but just this notion that young children, young people as film authors, that I think one of you had alluded to. You know, that they kind of create themselves and their experiences digitally using the moving image in a more naturalized way. I can't remember who said that, but one of you did allude to that. I've just noticed that because people are saying that they've got to go, and that and they're all saying, and people are saying thank you very much. I'm just going to hand over to Robert. I think Robert's going to wind up and just remind us about you know, how we follow up afterwards. But from my point of view, thank you very, very much. I mean, beautiful presentations, really well presented, lots of ideas and lots of food for thought, which I think everybody's really appreciating. And who knows, maybe more interconnections between you and between us and between the programs in the future. All to play for, all for the possibilities. So I'll just hand over back to Robert.
Sorry, I think Robert might have jumped off, so that's just me jumping in, Flip here from the journal. So just say thank you so much for the wonderful presentations. We'll be posting everything up on YouTube and emailing them out shortly. And if anyone has any questions, please drop us an email as well, and we can forward things on. But thank you all for a fantastic conversation this evening.
There was just a request, Ivana, to put a link to your project in the chat. So if you can do that before the meeting closes, then that, I think.
I did.
That's brilliant. Oh, you just, yeah. Okay, fantastic. Super. Lovely to meet you all. Lovely to see you all virtually. See you all again soon.
Thank you for inviting me.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.